Hi, this is Dr. Liza Sahido from Psyche Electro-Acoustic Opera Company, and you're watching episode 1 of Building a Standalone Podcasting App in Max 8. This series of tutorials is going to cover the following: app aesthetics, that is building an application that has audio visualizer, background color, and text that is customized to your brand. Your podcasting app will have keyboard functions where you could launch sound clips for your opening music, bumper music, sound effects, messages from sponsors. We're going to build in a cough button and Vox Effects Triggers with those keyboard functions. Your app is going to contain dynamics and mixing control. We're going to make sure that the voice level is well controlled by a compressor in Max, and we're going to mix all of the audio elements in your app with a Max mixer. And last but not least, we're going to construct an audio-visual recording module inside of Max so that your Patcher window is recorded and your podcast can be uploaded to YouTube and other AV platforms. And even though people are primarily going to be listening to your podcast, they'll also have something to look at. I find myself sometimes looking at audio visualizers when I listen to podcasts in bed. It's just relaxing, and also it pushes your brand to have a visualizer along with the audio. Within Max, you can also just export the audio of your podcast if you wish, and I'll show you how to bypass the video option if it is that you don't need a video element with your audio. All right, so let's begin. All right, so we're going to begin with the fun part of this project. We're going to build the visual component of your podcast, your audio visualizer. Now, the way that we're going to approach this is when everything is said and done, your Max window is what's going to be recorded as your podcast video. So everything that appears within a certain frame of your Max window will be exported as part of your video. So shape your Patcher window in the shape you want your video to have. We're going to start off by building an audio visualizer with your logo. And the file format of your logo can be anything that QuickTime can read. So the first thing we're going to need is an object called jit.playlist. And what we're going to do is drag our logo file into that playlist. Your patch can either be locked or unlocked. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to set up an output window for it. Because I am going to use the Patcher window, I'm going to record the Patcher window as part of my podcast. I'm going to use the jit.p window output window. Jit.p window. All right. And I'm going to hook up a Patcher cable from the jit.playlist to the jit.p window. And I can resize this any way I'd like so. I lock my patch, press play. There's my logo. Now, of course, if you're using a GIF or a video file, you want to loop this file so that your logo keeps playing. All right, so what I'm going to do is click on this loop button, and voila, that is all set up, ready to go to become an audio visualizer. So there are many ways to turn this image into a cool audio visualizer. My favorite way to play around with its saturation values. So to do that, I'm going to bring in an object called jit.vcr. Jit.vcr. That stands for jit.brightness, contrast, and saturations. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to disconnect my Patcher cable, and I'm going to connect the output of jit.playlist to jit.brcosa and the output of jit.brcosa to the jit.p window. All right. Now I'm going to bring in some messages so that I can control the parameters of this video, the brightness, color, or brightness, contrast, or saturation elements of this video. All right. I'm going to choose saturation. So I brought in a blank message, and I'm going to type in saturation $1. When you type in $1 into a message, you're allowing that message to receive a variable from elsewhere. All right, you can feed numbers into this message now. All right, so we're going to bring in a floating point number box. You can either go to the menu up here to select a floating point number box or bring in a blank object and type in flow num. There's my floating point number box. Now, what I'm going to do is feed amplitude values from a meter tilde object, which is my peak to peak meter in max, into this flow number box. I'm going to bring in an analog to digital converter, which will or allow me to route the output of my microphone. All right, so I'm going to drag in a blank object, type in meter tilde. This is my peak to peak meter and max. This spits out numbers between 0 and 1. That's why we're using a floating point number box. 1 is clipping, 0 is no amplitude. Connect the output of this meter tilde and connect it to this number box. First, let's make sure that my audio interface is properly set up. If you double click on your ADC tilde, you will gain access to your DSP menu. Everything looks properly set up. I'm going to turn on my audio. Audio is on. Okay, so you see the numbers that are feeding into my saturation $1 are very small numbers, and they're not going to have a very dynamic audio visualizer. Let me turn on the video so you could see the effect. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. So we're going to have to do a little math to make this audio visualizer more dramatic. All right, so I'm going to unlock my patch, disconnect my meter tilde from my flow number box. And I'm going to bring a blank object and bring in a multiplier. And I'm going to multiply my meter tilde signal by 15. Make sure there's a decimal point at the end, because if you're going to feed into a floating point number box, you need to make sure the argument of your multiplier is a floating point number. All right, here we go. All right. Okay, now we have a more convincing audio visualizer. Okay, so this is a basic audio visualizer, and we built it with a GIF. But now we have to clean up our patch window, because our patch window is going to be the video of our podcast. And so we got to hide some objects or move them out of the way. And the stuff we move out of the way will format later to make a nice control panel for our podcasting app. This is what's going to be captured in the video. Now we still see this patch cable here, so that's a problem. I'm going to click on that and highlight it and go to Object and click on Hide Unlock. When I lock my patch, now that patch cable is not visible. Okay, now what I want to do is change the background of my patcher window. Okay. So we're going to bring in an object called swatch. Okay, so this swatch is going to allow us to pick the background color for our patcher. It puts out values in RGB format depending on what mode you select for your swatch. It could put out numbers between 0 and 1, or you can use its second compatibility mode, which puts out numbers between 0 and 255, kind of like what a DMX operator does. Now it does put out these numbers in a list, so we have to unpack the numbers to see this list. So I'm going to bring in a blank object and I'm going to type in unpack, and it's going to unpack 3 elements. So I'm going to need 3 zeros with decimal points next to it, because they're going to be floating point numbers. Okay, it's RGB. Okay, we're going to need 3 flow nums. R, G, B. Okay. And there we have it, our RGB values. Now we're going to feed these RGB values into a object called background color, or BG color. Let's take this module and bring it down here. I do feed it to background color. I just had to check that. All right. So in order to get the code, the RGB code for the color that we want, we need to unpack the output of swatch. I'm going to bring in an object called unpack. And because there are 3 elements to this list, we're going to give unpack 3 zeros. If we were receiving integers, we wouldn't need those decimals, but we're not. All of these are going to be floating point numbers. All right, let's bring in 3 flow nums. All right. So now I'm going to create commands with these numbers in it so that my background color will load as soon as I open the patch, and I don't have to be selecting the color from swatch every time I open my patch. So we're going to bring in a pack object. We're going to pack these 3 numbers together. And since we're creating a list with 3 elements, we need a pack with 3 elements in it. Make sure that your zeros have decimal points next to them because we are dealing with floating point numbers. All right. And now I'm going to create messages with these numbers in them. All right. So 0.656. Zero 0.313. That's my green value. And now I'm going to do my blue value. And I'm going to bring in 1. Okay. And I want to trigger these numbers all at the same time. So I'm going to use a button, or what was traditionally called a bang, to do that. And then I'm going to feed the output of my pack into background color, change the color, and there we go. If I accidentally change the color myself, I can return to the color that I like. I want this bang to be triggered when this patch opens, so I'm going to send it a load bang. All right. In doing this, the next time I open this patch, the background color will be automatically loaded. Now, this is not actually the color I want for my podcast. I want a nice, sleek black background. So the color that I want to load is all zeros. We get decimal points next to those zeros. Thanks. All right, unlock my patch. All right. Doesn't that look nice? Oops, I see something. Okay, I accidentally made, okay, there we go. That looks sleek as heck, doesn't it? This is an awesome audio visualizer for my podcast. Now we could stop there, but what I'd like to do is bring in a waveform display as well. And I want to add some branding text. Okay, so let's add some branding text. I'm going to bring in a comment object. I'm going to type in hashtag electronic opera because apart from making Max tutorials, that's what my company does, produces electronic operas with multimedia technology, or I should say interactive multimedia technology. Now, we need to format this text. You won't be able to see it with my, well, you'll barely be able to see it with my black background. To format text, click on the comment object, and I can resize this, and click on your inspector window here. And here I can customize the text in any way that I want. Let's make the text gray, right? So it's kind of silvery there in the background. That's cool. I like that. You can also change the font. Let's see if I could find a more interesting font than Arial. Let's see. Show fonts. Okay. I don't know if you could see my font selector, but once I clicked on show fonts here in my inspector, I have a list of a whole family of fonts. Very nice. I'm going to make this symmetrical, and on the other side, I'm going to add my website that I picked last time. Highlight the comment object, right click it, copy, right click, paste. Now I got the same text again, then I type in my new text. Psycheopera.com. Okay, now I have the colors completely matched. All right. So that's what my podcasting window looks like so far. And again, I want to add one more audio visualization element. Okay, so I have plenty going on visually with my audio reactive logo, but I really want a waveform visualizer. So I'm going to bring in an object called scope tilde, and it gives us a nice oscilloscope. We're going to hook it up to our ADC tilde. Right now, it's not displaying in the way that we want, or the way that I want, and you can tweak the look of your oscilloscope using the Attrui object. This gives you access to the attributes of an object. And I'm going to change the mode in which it's displaying the waveform. So I selected the automatic attribute from the Attrui pull-down menu, and I'm going to turn it on. And this is what scope tilde looks like now, which I think is much cooler. All right. And so I'm going to set this up underneath my logo, and I can resize this any way that I like. I could stretch it out to cover my entire window if I wanted to. It could look like that if I wanted to, but let me just line it up with it may be cool for it to take up the entire window. All right, that's too big. Let me make sure I'm scrubbed all the way. Everything that, yeah. So that looks cool. I lock my patch. That's what it looks like. Oh, we see the ugly patch cables. Let's hide those ugly patch cables. So what I'm going to do is click on the patch cable, go to my object menu on the top, and hide on lock. And I'm going to do the same thing with this thick patch cable that's coming from ADC tilde and hide on lock. And when I lock my patch, there it is. But guess what? We can customize the look of this even more. First of all, let me center it with another Attrui object. And I'm going to leave this up here so that this becomes part of my my control panel window. I'm going to bring in another Attrui object, and I'm going to feed it into that. So let me bring it closer, and let's see if we could change the background color, and we can. Let's select black so everything matches. It's my background color. Looking good. Looking good. But now I have to eliminate that patch cable. So we're going to click on the BG color patch cable for my scope tilde, and we're going to go to object. We're going to hide on lock. We're going to scooch this attribute to the corner, and let's see what this looks like. Oh, that's nice. That's really, really nice. But what if I want to change the color of the waveform itself? Yeah, I want to do that. So I'm going to bring in another attribute, another Attrui object. and I'm going to hook it up to my scope tilde. I might as well go up here to object and hide unlock. And let's lock the patch and let's see. Okay, so to change the color of the waveform, we're going to select the phosphor color attribute. And I'm going to do something really, could be pink, blue, purple. Actually, I really like that color. Let's pick this color. I really like that color too. But I want to pick something that matches with my logo. So maybe this cool green color. All right. That green color, as you can see, it's prominent in my logo. So we're going to organize all of this into a user-friendly control panel eventually. For now, we're just going to leave it alone as we build. Okay. So when I export my podcast video, the audience will see this without the max controls, of course. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I will see you in episode 2. Bye.